Hi, this is Peter Morkel with KW Westfield Excellence Real Estate, and this is your opportunity to learn from me about our data-driven strategic approach to maximizing the results you get when you sell your home. Selling your home is a very, very complex and detail-oriented process. A lot of folks think it's finding a buyer, and that's about 10% of what takes place when you're selling your home. So there are things you absolutely have to do, and we're going to start talking about marketing. So comprehensive marketing is essential. We use a comprehensive marketing plan that allows your home to be syndicated to thousands of different websites and portals. So if you can name a real estate website, your home will show up there as a featured listing. So obviously your home will be on the multiple listing service, and that will then syndicate to Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, and then all the local brokerages that exist in the state and nationally will feature your home as well, because we spend quite a bit of money to syndicate your listing to everyone that could conceivably see it, because exposure matters. The way to think of this is as a funnel. The more people that see your home online, the more people will then set appointments, and the more appointments and showings we get, the better the offers. And our goal is always multiple offers if we can, if the market will allow that, for example. So then the other essential component is that you have to have a professional media package. I'll say this 1,000 times. In my 20 years of real estate experience, my worst thing is bad listing photos. And the reason is that you used to be able to say that your first impression was when you walked up to the home, and that is no longer true. The first impression people have of your home is online. So we go all out. We hire a professional photographer who does high-res photography, drone aerials for folks coming from out of state. They don't know where your home sits in relationship to other landmarks. We do virtual tours and video walkthroughs. And we're actually now using a technology called Matterport. We've been using it for a number of years, where you can actually walk through the home, look up, look down, look left, look right. They can see the full experience of walking through your home without actually being there in person. In fact, it's quite surprising to me how many homes we've sold where the buyer doesn't see the home till right before or right after closing. Now, I would not advise that. It always creates a lot of anxiety for me because these video walkthroughs are so immersive. And now you can even put on a set of virtual reality goggles and do walkthroughs of homes that way. It's pretty amazing. And so high-res photography, a professional media package, is absolutely essential to the process. If your realtor goes through with their iPhone, you know you've made a mistake. And usually it's too late then because you've signed the listing contract. So then those those professional photos are used in targeted social media campaigns. So we use multiple portals, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube ads that target qualified local buyers. And it's amazing how that technology has completely shifted over the years. Facebook, Meta just did a new Andromeda reboot of how they do ads so that the targeting is amazing. And then obviously there's a digital marketing suite we use so that your single property website gets traffic. And 96% of realtors in Utah are represented by a realtor. They have a buyer-broker agreement. So we direct some of our marketing to those agents because we don't want to rely on the fact that those agents are going to go and search the multiple listing service and stumble upon your home just because it meets certain criteria. We want them to have had an experience with your home so that it jumps out at them from the page. It's funny because we're not just marketing to buyers, we're marketing to their realtors as well. And that's a big mistake a lot of people make and agents make, is they only have the buyer in mind, not the buyer's representation. So, and then obviously we do SEO optimization, which is for the search engines that exist out there, which basically there's one player in that space right now, and that is Google, Bing to a much lower extent. We also want to use a strategic pricing approach. So marketing matters and pricing matters. Most agents will do what's called a market analysis, a CMA. You've probably heard those terms. They call pulling comps, and that's good enough potentially. However, what we've found is we have to do a precision price analysis. That is an in-depth analysis of recently sold homes. Think of that as the historical data. Sometimes we got 6 months. I prefer 90 days because it's more current. However, if you have a unique home or sales are low in your neighborhood, we might have to go out 6 months or sometimes even 12 months. I recently listed a home here in Springville, and there was no data from the last 6, 7, 8, 9 months. We had to go out a full year to find equivalent homes in the area just because so fewer homes were selling in the area right now. Then we look at active listings. Think your competition. What are your neighbors doing when they sell their home? Or 2 streets up, let's say you live in a 3,000 square foot Rambler with a finished basement on a quarter-acre lot. Are there other 3,000 square foot Ramblers on quarter-acre lots within 5 or 10% of that you'll be competing with? And how does your home stack up on the details? And then expired listings, which homes didn't sell? And then let's figure out why. So we have to really dig into the data to establish an accurate market value. We do a competition assessment by reviewing the current inventory because we want to position your home competitively so we can maximize your return. Okay. And we dig in, we look at features, upgrades, who's got solar panels, who doesn't, who's got the deep backyard versus the wide yard. Is there a third car garage or a fourth car garage or not? These things all make a difference. The quality of the finishes on the inside. Do we have dated color palettes? Those kinds of things. And we need to factor all of those things in. Then we do a price positioning strategy. We look at what is the price we need to be at to generate the highest and best offers for you. We want to avoid overpricing because in our current market conditions, you can definitely overprice a home very easily, and that leads to an extended time on market. And then weekly, we do a performance review so that we can do market-driven adjustments. So the expression is, the market never lies, but it sometimes changes its mind. So we may be looking at historical data, we might do the competition assessment and position our pricing, and then a war breaks out or the job market report gets released the next week. And so that changes buyer psychology, buyer behavior, and we might need to adjust. So we keep tabs on both micro and macroeconomics. So pricing strategy is essential. And so there's 3 essential ways to price a home. And I'm going to start with number 3, premium pricing. Some people call this aspirational pricing. And this is sometimes when a home has a celebrity factor. So it targets a small group of very picky buyers, and it only really works on very unique properties. It's really designed to test the market ceiling, and it only works in some markets. So this is really not the best strategy for most folks, and it doesn't work very well in your general market with, if there's a normal distribution from inexpensive homes to luxury homes, this does not work for those in the first, second, or third standard deviation from that normal kind of value. And then we've got what I call aggressive pricing, auction pricing, where there's a need to sell quickly. So you just got a job transfer, you've got 6 weeks to take the job and to move to Chicago. So what do we have to do to get as many buyers to see your home that are qualified as quickly as possible? And so usually we'll price 5 or more percent below what the comps justify. And essentially the market does its work. It drives up the price. And this aggressive pricing approach is magic. If I was going to sell my home today in this market, that's the approach I would use, just because with higher interest rates and a lot of inventory, buyers need to be surprised by the listing. And an aggressive price is the best way to surprise them, because I know that if I do that, I'm going to end up with multiple offers, and that's going to drive me to market value and not have the hassle of being on the market for an extended period. So, and then what most people choose, what most realtors claim to be doing, is market value pricing. So that's that precision pricing analysis where we come up with a narrow range that attracts only serious buyers. And it's the perception of this is a fair deal. Okay. And it is a predictable outcome because we know that if we price your home at the fair market value, having factored in the competition and all the features of the home compared to the competition, that we're going to get it sold in a normal amount of time. And that normal amount of time will vary from market to market and month to month. So your average time on market, let's say, is, for argument's sake, is 60 days. We know that if we use market value pricing, we'll have your home sold within those 60 days. If we are in the winter time, then maybe that extends the period. So our time on market might go up to 75 or 80 days, but we know that using market value pricing, we will get a predictable result. Ultimately, I'm your co-pilot and you're the pilot, and I give you counsel and advice, but you're in the driver's seat. You make the decisions as to which pricing strategy to use. Timing the market right. So a lot of people will ask me, when is the right time to sell? And the reality is that there is a seasonality to our market. That seasonality has almost completely disappeared over the last 10 years. And the reason for that really is the fact that Utah has come into its own. And so we have people moving here year round. It typically was driven by the school year. So it used to be driven by the school year where kids get out in May and they go back at the end of August. So most sales were happening in that springtime. And we do see significant spring spike in buyer activity, but you also see a spike in listing activity. So it kind of evens out. We really do need to look at the local market, like the neighborhood you're in, because these things are location specific. If you live near a local university, you may have more seasonality than the average neighborhood that's driven by the traditional K through 12 school schedule. So seasonally, spring and fall, early fall tend to see 15 to 20% more buyer activity with faster sales and higher prices. But that is a bit of a gross generalization because that can be highly variable. I keep big tabs on economic indicators. Interest rates is the number one, employment trends, and inventory levels. We want to really maximize your opportunity by keeping a focus on the broader economic indicators. When rates go up, buyer activity decreases, and sometimes there's a bit of a lag for new buyers, but existing buyers that are in the market can be very price sensitive. We look at local employment trends. So for example, up near Hill Air Force Base, if they're hiring, then typically that market tends to be quite robust. If they have a hiring freeze or are doing furloughs or layoffs, that real estate market will kind of grind to a halt and you'll see more aggressive pricing. And then obviously we want to look at inventory levels. How many homes are you competing with? And then just your personal readiness. At the end of the day, the best time to sell is what's right for you and your family. You know, in real estate, we sometimes talk about the D's, you know, diapers, diamonds, death and divorce. And those D's are essentially life-changing events. And those life-changing events can definitely affect your timeline. So when we consult with you, we'll handle that situation very carefully to make sure that your needs are being met, your financial goals are being met, and that your plan to sell and maybe buy or sell and move out of state, that you're not homeless in between, that everything is timed for your best outcome. There is a timeline to selling your home, and I think it's important from an expectation standpoint to understand what that timeline is. And here it is on the screen, and obviously each situation is slightly variable, but this is kind of what is generally the process we use, because you only get one chance to make a first impression. So we really want to do the preparation on the front end. So in the first couple of weeks, we are doing staging consultation, professional photography. Before we do the photography, we want to make sure we do the golden walk through the home. We have an inspection. We do any necessary repairs. And we've got a whole team of people to help with that. We want to do all the necessary repairs, the home inspection, the pre-inspection, to make sure that we are bulletproofing your listing so that there aren't things wrong with the home that will come up on the inspection and then derail the transaction later. So once we have your home looking like a shiny penny, we've done the golden walk, we've got the professional photography, then we're going to plan a launch. So that includes putting the home on the multiple listing service, launching our digital campaigns, inviting other brokers and realtors to see the home. Obviously, a sign goes up in the front yard. And this is a very extensive process when we launch the social media ads, etc., and really get the ball rolling. So a lot of agents are just putting in a sign and hoping it sells. So everything from MLS activation to sign installation and everything in between happens in our first week on market, which is usually week 3 of the process. Then we do active marketing. So weeks 4 through 6 are where the magic happens. We're doing showings, open houses. We're looking at the feedback we're getting and we're doing the analysis. We try and do our first price adjustment within 14 days of being on the market if needed. So if we've priced it well on the front end, this may be unnecessary, but I have a 2-weekend rule. Basically, if the home's been on the market for 2 weekends and we're not getting a ton of showings, we need to adjust quickly because we don't want to go stale on the market. So, and we want to listen to the feedback we're getting from potential buyers. Now, some buyers will provide feedback that is informative and useful, and some really is things we can change. So, for example, we might get feedback that, hey, you're on a busy road with a double yellow line, and that's a deal breaker for us. Well, we can't move the house, right? So that is feedback that is kind of good informationally, but it's not something we can respond to by fixing things. But if we keep getting feedback, oh, the brown wall in the half bath is unattractive, we can quickly call our painter and have him come and neutralize that wall. So that feedback analysis is very, very important. And once we're responding to feedback and we're getting the showings, my goal is always 5 showings a week. If we're getting 5 showings a week, then we know that the market is responding and we're priced appropriately. If we're getting no showings, we need to price adjust and look at our marketing. When that first offer rolls in, we then have to do the deep dive into offer analysis. So we review offers, we negotiate terms, and this is the place where our team really shines because, like I said, 10 to 15% of the job is finding the buyer, but making the transaction bulletproof from contract to close is essential. And then the things like the inspection and the appraisal are just technicalities. So I would argue that once that power shifts into the buyer's hands, we as the seller then just kind of roll with the process because we've done all of our work up front. Now, I've got some incredible strategies to deal with inspection findings and those kinds of things. And this is where my experience really comes to bear because if they find something on the inspection that is a $500 fix, but they ask for a $1,500 concession, I'm going to know that right away. And if I don't, I've got trusted professionals I go to. So we also want to make sure that our title report, any title or boundary line issues are resolved prior to contracting. And so I make sure that we get that full title report long in advance of accepting a contract. And then we, during that inspection and appraisal and final walkthrough, that's kind of what they call escrow or being under contract. And then we go to closing and funding, and it records at the county the next day. It's important to bear in mind that one of the most important components of this whole selling timeline is coordinating your move. Okay, we want to prevent gaps between homes. And I would say more than half of agents flub that possession process. And it leaves a very bad taste in people's mouths if they end up homeless and have to move out of their home before they have a place to go. and they're under a lot of pressure to move. Having just the very next day to be out of the house can be quite intimidating. So there's a number of strategies here, like an extended closing, doing a short-term lease back, having contingent offers, working that out, making sure that if we are going to do contingencies, that there are elements in place that bind the parties more strongly if they've got a home to sell. There is bridge financing available. I've got this incredible loan product I have access to that allows you to buy your new home without selling your previous home first, but not being stuck with two mortgage payments. Through a local credit union, and then temporary housing. Sometimes people want to go live in grandma's basement for a few months while their new home is being built to save money. And so we have that conversation in advance so that we know exactly how to make the transition from your current home to your next home magic. Here are some home preparation strategies that I would recommend in almost every situation. There's some interior enhancements and some exterior things. And what I have found is that a lot of people will do some of these and then will outsource most of them. Because if you were to do them all yourself, A, do you have the skill set? B, do you have the time? And C, do you have the money? So we'll have a consultation and figure out what the most efficient strategy is to make these home preparation things happen. So here's a list of interior enhancements. We talk about the 3Ds: deep clean, declutter, and depersonalize the home. We want that home to look amazing. I had one lady, her home looked so great after we did this. She's like, I don't think I want to move. I'm like, I wouldn't want to move either. This house looks perfect. So we want to make sure that we make that home look amazing. We want to have fresh neutral paint in high traffic areas. And we want to update lighting fixtures and switch plates. Sometimes these things are necessary, sometimes they're not. But you'd be amazed at how switching out the old style lights for new lights can be pretty inexpensive, but make a home look completely different. We have a little patch and paint budget that we apply to repair minor damage, holes, and scratches. I've got some clients right now who had like a wall of fame. All of their 6 kids, every year they'd had a photo taken. And so this whole wall was covered in pictures from the last 15 years. So we took all those pictures down, and then we had that wall properly patched, feathered beautifully, and painted. You wouldn't have been able to tell there'd ever been anything hanging on that wall. Because if buyers go down there and they see that, as much as you love those pictures, it's just a distraction. If they go into that basement and see that wall of fame, they're just going to spend time looking at the photos and saying, hey, do I recognize this person? Oh, yeah, I think I went to high school with him. And they don't look at the house, they look at the pictures. And so we want to take those things down. And obviously, it's a little bit case specific. 1 or 2 family pictures is awesome, but we don't want, like I said, a wall of fame. Professional carpet cleaning or replacement. I know that sounds like replacing your carpets is a big ticket item. We don't always need to do that, but getting them professionally cleaned really, really is important. We might stage key rooms. So if the home is currently occupied, we have a staging consultation where we bring a professional in, and I'm a great negotiator. I'm great at marketing. Staging is not my forte. So I have someone on my team who is a professional stager. She'll come in and walk through and help us know what to get rid of, what to keep, how to position things to just make your home feel amazing. If the home is vacant, then we have staging options where we actually bring in furniture and that kind of thing. And usually that's not an additional cost to our sellers, which is very unique about our program. And then we want to organize closets. I typically recommend to folks to get rid of 50% of the stuff in their closets. And that might look like putting all of your seasonal clothes in a wardrobe box in the garage or the basement or in a storage unit. But we want those closets to look spacious. And then, like I mentioned earlier, removing personal photos and memorabilia. And that is a case-by-case basis because it really does depend on the situation. Like I said, 1 or 2 family photos is not the end of the world, but we want to make sure that they're tasteful. Religious iconography and art, 1 or 2 items is probably not the end of the world, but we don't want a whole wall of specific, religious iconography or whatever. Exterior matters because when you first walk up to the home, that is people's second impression because the first impression is online. So we want to make sure that the walkways, the driveway, the front of the home, and the sides and back as well, potentially, are looking beautiful. And so power washing is a great way to do that. And so we've got someone who will come out and power wash the front of your home if necessary. Doing some light landscaping to the front. Sometimes it's just a bag of mulch. Sometimes it's just a little bit of a trim or a weed, and painting or staining front doors and shutters. So my house is south facing, so I have to stain my front door every other year. And if I don't, it looks faded. And so if I were to put my home on the market today, the first thing I would do is I would clean up the front of my house, power wash the walkway, and then stain that front door and make it look amazing. If you've got sinking concrete, that makes the walkway or the driveway unlevel, we've got an awesome solution where someone will come in and just drill a little pilot hole, pump in some polyurethane underneath, and lift that sagging piece of concrete that's bugged you for years. And it's so much better than replacing concrete, so much less expensive. And then that pilot hole gets patched with some cement compound. So sometimes we put some seasonal flowers in the planters or beds. We are going to replace or repair any damaged fence sections. I want to make sure your lighting is all functional. And then I'm okay with using the garage as a staging area if that's the only place in your home to put stuff, but it needs to be neat and organized. So do all storage areas. A lot of people will ask us about compensation. And I want to make it very clear, commissions have and always will be negotiable. They have been my entire career. And so you need to tell us what you need. We have these, I guess you could look at this as a menu of options, and we have a menu and we have a la carte standalone. So I've had people call me and say, hey, we found a buyer. Will you write the contract and help us put it all together and get us from contract to close? And I've got a fee for that. So we're very flexible when it comes to commissions because we want to provide a high level of service. So we've got 3 packages. We've got a bronze package, which is professional photos, the MLS, all the things we've talked about, KSL signs. We've got some basic social media ads. We use our electronic keybox system, and then we've got 24-hour AI lead follow-up. And this is something new that we've added to all our packages, because as you go up in package, everything from the previous package is included, and then some. So our silver package is everything that's in the bronze package, plus we do include the Matterport and drone footage, and we have up to $1,000 in staging or repairs. So that's a huge feature of that package, because that staging consultation makes the world a difference, and getting us in to do patch and paint on our dime makes a huge difference. We also do what's called a mega open house. So when we put the home on the market, that first week, we do some extensive advertising for the following full weekend, so that on that Saturday, we're doing what's called a mega open house. We drive a ton of traffic because that is our single biggest opportunity of landing a buyer for your home. A lot of agents don't want to do open houses. They'll skirt the issue, or they'll begrudgingly do an open house. We've got like a 7-layer level process for that first mega open house, and it's amazing. It really does drive a ton of traffic and make your home stand out from the rest. We include a listing warranty through a local warranty company, so that if while we're under contract or while we're on the market, it's Murphy's Law, right? You put your home on the market and 2 weeks later your water heater goes out. So the listing warranty will cover those items. We also do professional cleaners that we pay for if you pick the silver package. And then weekly analytics. Those professional cleaners, we either have them come right before the photography or right before the first open house, depending on what you prefer. And then sometimes we'll have them come a second time when you're ready to move, because once you've moved out, the last thing you want to do is not clean the old house, but we all want to leave our home looking amazing for those new buyers. So getting those cleaners in at that point is sometimes a huge deal for my home sellers. In our gold package, it includes everything that's in our silver package. And this is kind of a unique set of circumstances that would require the gold package. It often means that it's a complex transaction that is going to require legal intervention. So I do have access to an attorney that's on retainer that'll answer questions for us. But if there's a contentious divorce where I'm liaising with two separate sets of attorneys, and like a regular divorce is fine. This wouldn't apply. I wrote a book about divorce and real property, and this doesn't apply in just a standard divorce situation. But if there's a high contention situation where we do need to talk with the lawyers a lot and have negotiations that are multi-layered, then this would apply. Or if there's a bankruptcy involved, or someone's passed away and they died intestate without a will, or probate wasn't done properly, then we facilitate that process through some attorneys that we know to make the process smooth for you, but it is substantially more complex. And then there's moving cost reimbursement potentially in the gold package, depending on where you're moving, and those kinds of things. So bronze, silver, and gold, or anything in between, we're open to that. And then in addition to providing you with our level of service, we usually do recommend to our sellers to compensate a potential buyer's agent. And that can be quite flexible on what that needs to be, depending on the quality of the offer that is presented. So hopefully that answers those questions. I want to talk a little bit about expert negotiation. A lot of people feel like this is easy, but I think it's not as easy as people make it out to be. When you're selling your home, it's a very emotional process, particularly if you've been there a while. And so if someone comes along and submits a lowball offer, it's easy to be offended. And my job is to be an emotional buffer when that happens and not let the process get derailed. The great irony is that sometimes those lowballers end up being incredible people to work with. They just have a different strategy, and not responding emotionally, being able to stay emotionally regulated when those lowball offers come in. That's my job, right? So when we strategically price and then we do a proper offer analysis, then we can counter with confidence. We can use the market data and the comparables to justify why we are willing to defend our price. So I'll often tell my sellers, based on the data, you choose the price, and my job is to defend that price. With sword and shield in hand, I've got to be able to defend the price, and we have to be able to counter with confidence. And so I'll pull out all the stops. I'm a problem solver by nature, and so that's really, really important. The other thing is managing the inspection process. And this is something that is essential to making sure that there's a good outcome for you as the seller, because a $500 repair can feel like a $5,000 repair. When that inspector goes through, they will often take the varnish off the home, is what I say. So a buyer goes in, they're giddy, excited, they love the home, and then they find out, oh, the furnace is 20 years old, and the water heater has been there for 12 years, and it's past its useful life. Well, I've done some things in the pre-listing phase to prepare us for that. So I often recommend, hey, let's get the HVAC looked at in advance so we can have it serviced and signed off on. So if an inspection does come in and says, oh, this is past its useful life, we can say, yes, but ABC Air has said that they've inspected all the components and it's functioning beautifully, and we're not willing to give you $10,000 towards a new furnace because this one's working great. Now, it's easy to say that as the homeowner, but if you've got a professional to back it up, now we're cooking with gas. Now you've got a data to back up your point. So, and then appraisal strategy. Because I do precision price analysis, I almost never run into appraisal issues. However, in unique cases where we're dealing with unique homes, when we do run into appraisal issues, I will often have comps in my back pocket ready to protect your agreed upon price. Okay. And I create a list of property improvements you've done, because there are things that appraisers don't look at unless it's handed to them. And so I make sure to hand it to them to make sure they've got what they need without putting any undue influence on the appraiser. No one gets to choose the appraiser. The buyer doesn't, the seller doesn't. They're randomly assigned by an appraisal management company. And so that's actually a huge innovation in our industry that I think is a good thing, because the appraisers are completely independent. So, and then finally, closing coordination. We talked about the importance of moving in a reasonable amount of time, having all of that. So we want to manage that timeline proactively. Okay. So closing coordination is an essential part of what we do to make sure that you're having a smooth transition from your prior home to your new home. And we don't want that to be a point of struggle or stress for you. We have some showing protocols and open house protocols that are important to wrap our head around and to set expectations around and to help you understand. Now, we do two types of showings, private showings and open house events. And these are the two main ways that people are going to see your home in person. So we use software. We used to use Showing Time. We now use a process called Aligned that gives you advance notice about showings. So essentially, if I'm in a meeting with a client and someone wants to see one of my many listings, there's a system in place to make sure that they don't need to speak to me personally, that they get all the information they need, can schedule the appointment, and then you as the seller will get a text message or a phone call saying, hey, someone would like to show your home on Thursday at 4 p.m. Does that work for you? And you respond with a yes or a no. When you respond, that realtor who is scheduling the showing will get showing instructions, okay, about how to leave the home, how to prep the home, all of those things. And then we use a specific lockbox system called the Supra that shuts off at a certain point at night and turns on at a certain point in the morning. And the only people who can use it are realtors who've passed a background check and that have agreed to a certain code of ethics and behavior around the showing protocol. We do kind of a cadence of follow-up. So after someone shows your home, they'll get a text message, they'll get an email, they'll get a call, multiple ones of those over a period of days to ensure that you get feedback on your home so that we can make the necessary adjustments. Okay. What I recommend is leave the lights on, set a comfortable temperature for your home, and make sure that there is some mild music playing. Those three things make a big difference in the hominess or the comfort people feel when they walk in. Okay. And then something that does need to be addressed is risk of loss. I've never had anything stolen out of a listing in 23 years, but I do say guns, jewelry, anything of value, please make sure that it is locked up, and then make sure your pets are secured. We don't want pets roaming the house during showings, that kind of thing. In fact, if you can remove all evidence of pets, that would be awesome. We have to disclose that there were pets in the home, but we don't want dog bowls and dog water and dog food or cat towers or whatever showing during a showing. There's a subset of folks who just don't want animals in their home or the evidence of animals. So we just want to make sure that we don't automatically turn off 50% of buyers. And then we do have a weekly analytics report that you'll get that shows the data of like how many online hits have we had, how many agents have sent this report to their clients, how many public people have clicked on the link, and then how many showings have we had. So that's really important. If you've got specific needs around showings, we would gladly honor those. The most important thing is your home easily accessible? Can people show it? Not on a moment's notice, with reasonable notice, because the more showings means the more offers. And then open house events, we're strategic. We only do them on Saturdays typically. Sometimes we'll do a midweek open house. I've had some really good success with that in the spring and summer. We do professional signage, lots of directional arrows, but really the thing that drives traffic to the open house is our digital advertising. So yeah, we send out postcards to targeted markets and that, but my experience has been that it's the targeted social media ads on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube that really get traffic to those open houses. So if you think of marketing as old school and new school, old school meaning an open house with cookies and a sign, and new school with Instagram and Facebook ads, when you integrate those two, you get a substantially more synergistic result. We also have guest registration. We want to know who's in your home, when, and for how long. And then there's a follow-up system that we follow that is firm but not offensive, that helps buyers feel like they have another opportunity to see your home. We create a welcoming atmosphere. We were providing refreshments pre-COVID. Then during COVID, we stopped doing that. And now post-COVID, we have them take something when they leave because I don't want them leaving cookie crumbs on your kitchen or dining room floor. And then we do some post-event reporting to you so that you know exactly what people felt about the home. And typically my open houses are 2 hours long. I've experimented over the years and the data shows that 2 hours is the perfect amount of time. If you do a 3 or 4 hour open house, the same number of people come, they just all come in the last half hour. And it's the same thing when you do a 2 hour open house. There'll be 1 or 2 folks who come at the beginning and then almost no one in the middle, and then everyone rushes in at the end. So let's say we're doing an open house on a Saturday from 12 to 2. At 1:30, everyone will start showing up, and I just tell you in advance, don't plan being back till after 2:30 because most of the people are going to come in, and we just personally plan on being there over time past that 2 o'clock mark, because without fail, someone will walk in 5 minutes before, and our priority is you and your sale, not our schedule. So we just plan in advance that it's going to go over, and we let you know that up front. So those are some of our showing and open house protocols. So we've covered a lot of material in this brief video, and there's a lot that hasn't been said. My goal here is to make sure that we come up with a personalized selling strategy for you. So if you're interested in getting started or just having the conversation, let's book a call together. Or better yet, let's schedule a time for me to visit your home. Either is fine. It's just really straightforward. You can just click the link below and we'll get that set up for you. I'm excited to help you. I hope I've been able to provide some value, some ideas, and some insight today into our process. But if you're ready to get started, let us know by filling out the brief information below. Thank you.